Yeah, coming off obviously just a tough road swing for us, and we've struggled on the road this season. I know we're going to have questions about that. What's the reason for it? Still figuring that out. But really liked the way that we played at Marshall. I thought we did a lot of really good things in that game, and I thought our guys had a great response. Halfway through the game as to how Marshall was defending us and how we strategically needed to attack, their switching defense, and I thought we did a great job with it. The difference in that game came down to a couple 50-50 balls, extra possessions that we just allowed them to be able to get, that we've had opportunities to get ourselves and didn't do. And then, there was a big run that occurred at the end of the first half against App State when we were playing really well. And a lot of that was sparked by very much the same thing. A couple 50-50 balls that didn't go our way, and then that led to some poor execution, shot selection, and poor floor balance. And then we compounded that with some defensive errors as well. And so, learning that, those types of mistakes, they add up quickly, and they'll cost you, and they'll cost you a little bit more when you're on the road is the takeaway from that one. But thankful that we get an opportunity to come back and play at home this week and get to play the same two teams, because we get to face the mistakes that we made, and we get an opportunity to correct them in a hurry, and we're going to make sure that we do that.
I was going to ask you about playing the same two teams again, because I know that's not super common when you're on a road trip and then you come back home and see the two teams again. So do you like that it does that kind of light a fire for you guys with a kind of like get back games, if you will?
I think so, yeah. Obviously you want to avenge your losses anytime that you have them. It's not very common, as you mentioned, that you get the opportunity to do it within the same week. Makes scouting a little easier, right? We're going to rewatch our games a couple times and, become very familiar with what each of those teams did against us. Both teams are going to make adjustments, and so this is where the coaching really comes in, right? Because neither team is going to play exactly the same way that they did last week. Both teams are going to do some things a little bit different to kind of have a change-up pitch on both sides of the ball. But, certainly when you've got the bad taste in your mouth and you don't like where you are, that you underperformed and didn't take care of business, you like the opportunity sooner rather than later to be able to avenge those losses.
You kind of mentioned just kind of assessing the tape and maybe some things that you're able to kind of process or that stood out since initial thoughts after the game. Do you feel like some of these mistakes are correctable, that you can get this turned around?
Without question. At the end of the day, it's about consistency, and I think that's where we're falling short right now. I think we'll show flashes to where, man, we're on the defensive side of the ball, for example. We're going to play tough and physical and connected and really do a great job with our communication and contesting shots and our positioning, and then finishing possessions with our guards flying in and getting rebounds. And then at some point throughout the game, we lose our consistency with those things. And then what leads to that? I think it's a lack of offensive production. And so I think we've got to do a better job with our guys of having them take a little bit more pride defensively and not allow our defensive intensity and our focus on the defensive side of the ball to be tied to our offensive performance, because that seems to be where we're at right now is we don't perform on the offensive end, and we allow that to affect us on the defensive end. And we've got to become a consistent team on both sides of the ball and not let those two things become dependent on one another.
You mentioned you're just trying to figure out some of the road woes. Do you know some of the? Are you trying to figure out that, and what are some of the things, if you've figured anything out yet, on why you're struggling away from home?
I think some of it's got to do with our energy and our connectivity, just to be honest with you. I think when we play in this building, our fans help will us to some extra possessions on both sides of the ball, and this is an unbelievable place to play, and you've got 4,000 or 5,000 people here who have your back and want you to win. When we go on the road, it is just us. It's our bench, and I think we've got to continue to get better with that. 17 games in, it's a disappointing statement to have to make, that we don't have great bench energy for one another, and our connectivity gets exposed when we go on the road. That's just where it's at. Those things are correctable. It's something that we've got to face and we've got to do a better job of, but I do believe that's where a lot of our falling short on the road has started, and that's what it comes down to, is our connectivity just hasn't been great, and the energy that we're generating for one another is just not enough in those types of environments on the road.
I want to ask you about a few guys. I want to start with Bryce, and now that people know that he can shoot the basketball as well as he can. Are teams playing him different? Are there different ways that you need to try and get him involved more?
Yeah, he's at the top of everyone's scouting report now, and that's part of the maturity for Bryce is we're getting him to understand that is, hey, the way that you got open earlier in the year is going to be significantly harder moving forward, right? People know every play that we have, every action that you're involved in, they go over it. They spend time because they know if they don't that you're good enough to beat them with these actions and with your talent. So for him, it's the next level of his development is saying, okay, now I'm going to be a master of my details, the nuances of my sets and my offense. I'm going to be better at setting up, sprinting my cuts, having an act, playing faster, playing physical with all of those things so that I can generate these points that I'm great at. So he's learning that. He's and that's very much a process. And so it's a hard thing that it was coming a little bit easier for him earlier in the year. And for a young player like Bryce, you have to work harder to get those shots. And not just him, but his teammates, right? If you set a good screen 8 games ago to get Bryce open for a 3, that screen's got to be significantly faster, more physical. It's got to be better on time, and the pass has to be there. And so, Bryce is the beneficiary of our offense running really well. It's not all on him. He's got to do his part, but the other guys do as well. But being at the top of the scouting report is a change for him, right? And that's what comes with the territory if you want to have that type of role. You've got to be able to evolve. And so we're working through that with him, a lot of film work, showing him a lot of things and getting him more comfortable and more confident with, hey, this is what's going to get you back to getting the clean looks offensively. And then also understanding that you're generating offense for our team just by being on the court. Marshall switched any and all actions on ball and off ball with him. They said, we are not going to allow you guys to just get Bryce these shots because he can beat you with them. The beneficiary of that was some other guys that, they left open that we were able to make the extra pass and the easy play. So it's, Bryce understanding, hey, you have a ton of value being on the court because you are a magnet for the defense. And sometimes that magnet takes you out of, getting as many shots, but it generates better looks for our team. And that's the next part of the evolution for him as well.
And then I didn't want to bring this up after the games, but some individual numbers were reached this past week. Elijah went over 1,000 points in his career, and then Swag goes over 1,500. You saw Elijah early in his career when you played against him and kind of learned about him at that point in time. And then obviously you've been with Swag the last 3 years. What's it mean to see these guys get kind of those milestones?
Those are great accomplishments, and, proud of those guys. To see them get out there and, reach those milestones, those are certainly big ones in college basketball, and thankful to have the opportunity to coach those guys and see them get there. And, for a guy like Elijah, just to see the progression that he's made. He's a guy that we admired him as a freshman when we went against him when he was at Austin Peay. We followed him throughout his sophomore and in his junior year at Seton Hall. And so we were thankful, and we knew that we had a really good player. When we targeted him, via the portal to get him here. And so it's nice for those things to come full circle and kind of see him reach a milestone like that.
Kind of wanted to touch back on the offensive inconsistencies that you've pointed out. Is that kind of one of the issues when you have a brand new team still maybe just trying to find that identity? Is that kind of something to chalk this up to as well? It's
part of it. It absolutely is. I think, basketball is such a chemistry-driven game, right? And it's getting our guys to understand, each of them have, valuable strengths. One guy's strength, it's prioritizing what they're good at. And, our job is to put them in position to showcase what they're good at and allow those pieces to complement one another. But sometimes when you get new guys, they tend to want to do things they're not quite as good at, right? Some guys are better ball screen players. Some guys are better coming off and shooting threes. Some guys are better, in the post or whatever that may be. But when you get outside of your strengths and guys aren't complementing each other and not playing the way this team is designed, then you have inefficiencies on the offensive end. You have poor shooting numbers. You have low assist numbers, and you have high turnovers. And that's kind of where we're at right now. And so we've got to get back to saying, hey, we're going to be an elite execution team. We're going to play to our strengths individually, and then through that, collectively, we're all going to be able to play efficient and shine. And so I don't think we're too far off from that. The numbers would tell you that we are, but the fixes from, my seat are pretty easy. But we've got to be able to face those and correct them on the court.
Kind of going off of that a little bit, especially kind of in the early parts of the season when you guys had performances like you had this past week, a lot of the messaging from you and your players was just kind of about like, we're still trying to figure things out. We're still trying to figure us out as a team. Would you say that's still the case at this point in the season?
Yeah, sometimes it kind of happens that way, right? You look at it and you say, wow, we figured out a way to win this game, and this guy stepped up, and maybe this guy, didn't have his best game. But then there's another problem that'll rear its head, And so I think that for all of us, it's being able to say, hey, whatever it takes for this team to win, if it's me playing less, me playing more, me taking more shots, less shots, whatever that may be, that's going to be enough, right? And I think that's where we're going to become a more consistent team if we just really submit to that. And so I wouldn't say we're still figuring it out. I think we know exactly what it is we need to do because we've shown flashes of when we can do those things. It's about doing them consistently and understanding that those will be enough. Those things will be enough. And there's going to be nights where, last week, 2 weeks ago was a fine example, right? I think Mark had to, step up in that type of game, excuse me, in Bryce's absence and go for 30 to help us beat Southern Miss. That's what the game kind of dictated. The very next game, Mark barely played down the stretch against Arkansas State, and we won. So two very different games, two very different, statistical outcomes individually for our players, but great outcome for our team. And so understanding that the sum of our parts is what makes us really good, and some nights it's going to take one guy to do it for us, and other nights it's going to take another guy. And that's what good teams do, and that's what we're learning. I wouldn't say that we're still figuring that out. We could probably got to submit to it a little bit better.
Coach, I was very interested in what you said last week about coaching the bench. When you're in a ball game and you're keeping an eye on the body language of players, when did that become a part of your coaching? Where did you learn that that's an important component of winning ball games?
I would tell you it's been a while. We've always made that a focal point. It became a very important part of our identity as a program during COVID, because we knew we were going to be playing in a lot of empty arenas or limited capacity arenas throughout that season. And so we would have to generate a lot of energy for ourselves. And so we began coaching our bench. We began doing a bench edit after games. And we would call guys out when they weren't very good on the bench, and I would become very animated in the film room on purpose to let guys know, this is not okay. And then the flip side of that is that we would celebrate it when they did a great job, and so we would make it fun, and we would have guys, that were interactive and animated on the bench and engaging and helping their teammates, and then we'd have them get up and reenact that in front of the team. And that was extremely important during a COVID year when there was maybe no fans or 100 fans in the stands. But it's equally as important when you're playing on the road and you don't have any fans, who are there for JMU. And so that's always been an important piece. And it's really not something that we should address 17 games in, to be honest with you. And so, but we will, because it's that important, and we'll continue to draw attention to it and coach the bench if that's what we need, because it's a vital part of our success.
Has that ever been a topic at one of your conventions with coaches? Has it been a seminar, how to coach a bench?
It has not, okay, but I will tell you, we got an unbelievable compliment back in 21 when we played in the NCAA tournament, and we were in the bubble. So we checked into the bubble hotel, and Syracuse at the time was checking in, and they were on the opposite side of our bracket. So we had the opportunity that we might play one another 4 years ago. And I remember one of their assistants, we were waiting in line to get COVID tested, and he said, I just got to tell you, I've never heard a bench like yours. It's unbelievable. Every game that I scouted of you guys, your bench is crazy. And we would get emails from the commissioner of officials asking us to tone it down, and I'd delete them. And, and we'd have guys come by and say, listen, Coach, you got to have these dudes sit down. And I'd say, okay, you got it. And as soon as the official would walk off, I'd say, nah, don't listen to that guy, get back up. This is a totally other topic. I don't know why officials worry about bench energy, right? Why are we going to spend time coaching or officiating the guys that can't foul, right? Like, let them have fun on the bench, I don't know why we got to be the fun police with all of that. But bench energy is important. It really is.
coaching basketball is a 24/7 job. We know that, and you're in the grind, as we like to say as well. But how do you and your coaches at this time of the year find a little bit of personal time? Do you carve it out? Do you specifically say this hour is just for me and my family? How do you treat that, particularly when you want to be in a family atmosphere as part of your culture?
That's a great question. I appreciate you asking that one. I would tell you that, first of all, for my family and then for our staff, we integrate those things together a lot. Our families are around. It's not uncommon that a coach's wife or their kids or both are going to be at practice. They're going to be, at a post-game meal. They're going to be hanging out. And so that's important to me. And I tell my staff that. I tell the players that day one that we are going to have the families around. We as coaches miss way too much time because of our commitment to you as players. So we need you to be good people so we can have our kids around, because they're going to model, you're going to model the behavior that they're going to see all the time. So that's part of it. The ability to unplug, you have to be intentional about that. I'm not missing church. I'll tell you that. Win, lose, I'm going to be the same guy, and I'm going to get up and I'm going to go to church on Sundays, and I'm going to worship, and I'm going to, get my mind right, because I'm not a very good coach, father, or husband if I don't get my mind right in terms of my faith. And so I'm going to certainly take care of that and invite the players to do that as well. And I know my staff, they do the same thing. But, sitting down, having meals, and spending time with your family is important. Some things that we do in our household, I don't care, win, lose, whatever it is, every Friday night, pizza and a movie. That's what we do. And, playing Thursday, Saturdays, that's kind of been our routine for the last 10 years and continuing here. We're going to watch a movie. I don't know if you guys seen the new movie, Wicked. It's wicked good. That's a good movie right there. So I know all princess movies. I know every one of them. My son is transitioning to some more mature movies. Like, he watched the new Gladiator, which was cool to be able to watch that with him. But, we do things like that. And we're very intentional about not bringing it home. Dad's going to be the same guy, whether they win, they lose, whatever it is. And so, that's, my mood is not dependent upon our team's success, and my family's love for me is not dependent upon my team's success. And so we're very intentional about those things. Thank you.